Welcome to the Political Matrix News. Politics, people, local, regional, national news. Political Matrix News keeps you informed. We have the sources, we have the truth from inside the Political Matrix. The Political Matrix blogcast rolls on. Greg Fink is holding down the fort in Gainesville. Scott Miller on the far western end of the realm. That would be Pensacola. And I'm Rob Milford, only a very, very few miles from Disney. We're doing the best we can. Florida presidential primary happened a couple of days ago, and Nikki Haley got more votes than Ron DeSantis. Of course, Donald Trump only got 20% of the entire Republican vote in the state, which is, Greg, what was that number you threw out a little bit ago? How many million?
Actually,
Republicans,
I mean,
5.1 or something?
20% of the vote. Well, that's an interesting way of explaining right. You change the number around. I mean, it's
okay.
20% turnout, and he got 80 or 90% of that.
Got it.
He got 80%.
Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's not bad.
I mean,
900,000 or something.
Well, actually, 90%. Yeah, he got 910,000 out of 1.1 million votes. So
Nikki got 40-some thousand. So I just
Nikki
scratch
got
your head on that.
155,000, and DeSantis got 41,000.
I wonder how much money the Republican Party of Florida spent on a primary, let's be very honest, that they really didn't need. Okay, next item. Florida is the biggest border state because we have a border with the Bahamas and with Cuba and, for that matter, all of the Caribbean. If you leave Mexico and you sail northeast, you come to Florida. But the problem is not just Haiti, which has completely gone to hell in a handbasket. The problem is Cuba, where we have ignored things. And the word from Cuba now is they are on the verge of total collapse, blackouts. They're running out of power. They're running out of food. And they are about ready to crawl to the United Nations saying, please send help. This has been repeated again and again. The food shortage, their economy sucks. It's still a communist country, and it's a lot of unrest in Cuba. Unrest in Cuba, what? So we could have more Cubans coming here, and not from Mariel either.
Right. I mean, I think capitalism in America, as much as we have our own issues here in America and our strife, and it's a wonderful political show we have here. I mean, this country is awesome. But, Cuba is a communist nation, and they're right next to us. And I know the people there see all the freedom and all the energy that we have here in this country, and all the, the ability to change your life. And I know a lot of people. I know a lot of Cubans here in the Gainesville area. A lot of them that go back and forth. I mean, it's very difficult for a lot of them to see a lot of the free stuff over here, but they are able to see a little bit of it, enough of it to know that they're so unhappy with the way everything is in Cuba right now. And it's just sad. I mean, they're great people. They're a great community, and they really, the communist dictatorship is just horrible to them.
Oh, absolutely, and the bureaucracy controls everything in the country. Try this since 2021. So let's call it 3 years since 2021. More than 500,000 Cubans have left. Now, Cuba has a population of about 11.25 million. So when you're talking about 500,000 people leaving, that's huge. That's absolutely huge.
Right.
And they did not all go to the United States, although when you're below Fort Lauderdale in Miami-Dade County, you certainly would think that you are in the northern suburb of Havana. And don't forget, gang, to put it really in perspective, Interstate 10, you go through Tallahassee, then you go down to Lake City, you take a right on Interstate 75 to come to Disney. Cuba and the Florida Keys are less than that distance. Okay, less than that distance. That's how close Cuba is, and it's a whole nother world. The failure of the tourism industry because of the restrictions they put on airline flights into Cuba and the restrictions on cruise ships. They don't go there anymore because guess what? People hated it. The cruise ships want to pull in at 8 o'clock in the morning. Everybody gets off, has a good time, gets back on the boat, 7 o'clock, they're gone. Cuba required you to spend the night, for the ship to spend the night so they could charge the ship more money. Cuba wouldn't allow airlines to fly to Havana. Oh, no. The other 7 airports, which are mostly crapola airports, You can't land at the good runway at the air base because that's secret stuff. And you might take a picture of one of our 50-year-old MiGs. So they had to go to crappy airports that nobody wanted to go to.
No, they don't.
So there you have it. And so their entire tourism thing, I'm going to tell you what, quite frankly, Bill Clinton is really, truly responsible for the failure of U.S. policies with Cuba. You know why I say that, Scott?
Why you say that?
Let's go back to the 2000 election. They were counting Chads. Wait a minute, you were right in the middle of that here in Florida. There was a time, almost 2 months.
Yeah.
It was December, but then all Bill Clinton had to do was fire up Air Force One, fly down to Havana for the weekend, smoke a few cigars with Fidel, and say, let's get this thing straightened out. He could have normalized political relations with Cuba and opened it up, and the American economy would now be benefiting Cuba. But they would, my God, have to give up communism for capitalism. And I don't know that they have raised 2-3 generations of Cubans who could even handle that. But it's we could have another influx. We could have a crush.
Yeah. Don't worry though, because the Castro family, all the children in the Castro family, spend more time in Miami than they do anywhere else, even in Cuba. So if the whole country collapses, the Castro family will be fine.
And they know about capitalism.
I don't care. The flights.
It's a big issue. I mean, the country's going down quickly. I have no idea what the answer is as far as stopping it from crashing. I mean, there's a possibility
wait. You're talking about the United States or Cuba?
Russia.
When you say the country's going downhill fast, Cuba. Which country?
Well, I mean,
just checking.
Okay, well, the United States is actually pretty safe right now, and until who knows. But right now, Cuba is far worse off than Russia. I mean, than America. And so, I mean, it might actually turn the direction that Russia did and the Eastern Bloc did after Soviets, were kicked out. And once, Cuba gets rid of communism, it'll start going that direction, which hopefully will be sooner than later. But by that time, I mean, hopefully, the big issue is going to be the workforce and training them to, understand capitalistic tendencies and everything else. There's a lot more than just freedom. It's not more than just to be able to have TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and everything else. It's balancing books. It's running a country without the country running you.
Yeah,
their phone system won't support TikTok.
To train anyone. Yeah, they're not going to bother trying to train anyone because exactly the same thing that happened in the Soviet Union is going to happen there. You have people who are ministers who are in charge of various segments of the country. As soon as the country falls, they'll stay in charge, and whatever seat they're occupying at the time will become their new oligarch.
Or do you think there will be a big exodus as well? I mean, that's one thing I have a question about. Is that will a lot of people stay there for the changing the guard and for making Cuba better, making Cuba great again, or are they going to be exiting Cuba and leaving as quickly as they can because they have the freedoms?
It's even money. Who's to say?
Yeah.
Depends on where they are, but they don't have very much. They don't have much in the world of and worldly possessions. They don't have any extra food. You got to go to the market every day.
What's the major resource?
They may not have bread on Tuesday. So
what's the major resource over there?
Well, believe
tobacco.
Yes, cigars.
Cigars,
yeah. Sugarcane. They sell sugarcane worldwide, but not to the United States. I could see, we've got conservatively here in Orlando with 600 hotels and motels. I would bet you that at least 20% of the management is Cuban, and they could all get on a plane and open the Havana Hilton right back up. But there's so much, there's no infrastructure. There's just no infrastructure there. Right. It would be like Mexico was 50, 60 years ago, quaint, and no, we don't have internet, and no, we don't have air conditioning. Literally, I always thought that when Cuba embraced capitalism, the guys would go over there and buy all of the old cars. But the fact is, they're hunks. If they have any good paint on it, that's because it was painted about 30 minutes ago. Everything is just completely shot out. The engines they use on those 57 and 58 cars are all Hyundai 4-cylinder diesels, because Cuba is friends with South Korea and can buy little diesel. They come off of tractors. These are little tractor engines.
Oh, really?
So that's forget that. I would love to go tour Cuba. I would love to go to San Juan Hill, down on the southeast coast. I've already been to Guantanamo. I ever tell you my Guantanamo story, guys?
No.
I went down there to cover the startup of bringing jihadis, terrorists in, and the military police from Fort Hood, they dispatched a battalion, 600 military police to help run the camp and do security. And my boss at the time was a cigar smoker, and he said, "Robbie, my boy, I'm sending you down there so you can get some cigars for me." He was under the mistaken impression that I could walk out the gate at Guantanamo Bay, go into Guantanamo City, which is still a couple of miles away, buy some cigars, come back onto the base, and bring them back to the U.S. I checked with the Marine commander there, rifle security company Windward, the same as those guys in the movie. And I said, "Yeah, I need to go to Guantanamo City to get some cigars." He looked at me like I had grown a 4-inch purple zit in the middle of my forehead. He said, "I don't think you can do that." I said, "Well, I've got a passport. The Cubans don't read the passport. They will shoot you first." Yes. "Oh, okay, well, then I can run back to you." He said, "No, because once you go through the gate, we'll shoot you." So I ended up getting little Havatampas that were made over in Jacksonville, maybe in Tampa, I don't know. Some basically Philly blunts, and I took the bands off and I gave it to him, and yeah, boss, they were $20 a piece. So he loved it right until the time he lit the first one, and then I pulled the band out and said, "Here, this fits."
But anyway, what you should have done was check with the E4 Mafia, because they can get anything done.
That's absolutely true. 100% right. Greg used to be an E4, but you'll notice he got out of that part of the mafia to do other things. Well, we've covered politics in Florida to a certain degree, and we've covered what the heck's going to happen with Haiti. It's going downhill faster than we can even comprehend it, but at least Ron DeSantis is doing something. And then, of course, Cuba, just to keep you aware of the fact that it could be hitting the fan sooner than later, and that is definitely not a benefit to Florida. Can our economy afford to get more Cubans in? I don't think so. But hey, for everybody in Cuba, all 11.25 million, they all have a cousin. Well, in the words of Jimmy Buffett, they all have a cousin in Miami. So on that happy note, I'm Rob Milford in Orlando. Greg Fink joining us from Gainesville. Wave at everybody, Greg. And then Scott Miller keeping us on the ball in Pensacola. Thank you. We'll see you next time on the Political Matrix Blogcast.